you know, we do a lot of critiquing and complaining about the way secular culture is going, and it certainly deserves it. And I think that does need to be done, but it has to be coupled with providing an alternative, or it's not going to mean very much. One of the reasons I think it's hard for people to see this is that there's often no difference on the surface in the way in the truth that we see and the truth that the secular world sees. It's easy to miss the radical relevance of Christian truth to all of life because in many areas there's no difference on the surface. The solution to a mathematical equation is the same for a Christian, a neo-pagan, and an atheist. Solution to the chemical formula of an additive to my gasoline that will make my car run smoothly, or medicine that will make my body do so, is the same, whether I'm a Christian, a Hindu, or a Muslim. The grammar by which I must construct my sentences to make them intelligible, and the rhetorical flourishes by which I make them powerful, and the logical arguments by which I can make them cogent are the same, whether I'm writing a sermon, a promotion for Planned Parenthood, or a translation of the Communist Manifesto. There's no particularly Christian way of doing any of those things. But that doesn't mean there's not a difference as to whether, how, or why a Christian should do them. There should be a difference as to whether, how, or why we do everything. Let's take something really, really basic. 2 + 2 = 4. Now, you would not think that is a particularly Christian statement. If ever there was a secular truth, that ought to be one. 2 and 2 do and must equal 4 and no other number, whatever your religious beliefs or your philosophy of life. So the Christian and the non-Christian see the same truth, but they don't or shouldn't see it the same way. The non-Christian says 2 + 2 = 4. I have no idea why. It just seems to work. And I've kind of figured out that if I ignore it when I'm balancing my checkbook, I'll end up in big trouble. So, okay, I'll just roll with it, whatever. The Christian looks at the exact same truth, 2 + 2 = 4, and completely agrees up to that point with the non-Christian. But the Christian should say 2 + 2 = 4. I can always trust this to be true. And therefore, it is an awesome, inspiring example of the transcendent rationality and trustworthy covenant faithfulness of the beauty of the mind of our glorious God, which reminds me to worship every time I balance my checkbook. Is balancing your checkbook an act of worship? Well, it is for me, simply because it takes a miracle sometimes. But I mean, that aside, 2 + 2 = 4, it's the same truth, but seen in a very different way, in a very different context, and leading to a very different approach to life. This is not just an emotional penumbra that, as a Christian, I can lay over my facts just to make them more enjoyable. It should ultimately make a practical difference. Seeing all facts as God's facts and seeing them God's way, you have no idea when you start out what that context is going to do to things. But, you know, the attitude I have toward balancing my checkbook ties in to my whole concept of honesty. Because 2 + 2 = 4 isn't just an abstract thing that happens to work in mathematics. It reminds me it was for yesterday. It's going to be for tomorrow. So that reminds me of the faithfulness of God.